Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, on this beautiful Sunday, as we already have some people jumping in the chat here. You know how much I love to talk, so it's always a great opportunity here. We got an off weekend, actually, probably my first off weekend in a long time. Well, I mean, I say that differently. My first weekend actually at home. We had off weekends in October, and I think we had maybe did we have one in September? But wasn't actually at home. So this is the first time on a Saturday and a Sunday where there was absolutely no racing or there wasn't necessarily activities, and we actually had the opportunity to get a little bit ahead on things. Jump in the chat here. Let me know where you guys are all watching from. Let me know that you can hear me loud and clear. Like I said, you guys know how much I love to talk. So excited to just jump on here. We'll get to answer some questions, talk about 2025, what's going on in the dirt racing scene. There's a lot happening right now. We've seen a lot lately. It's also the end of the outdoor season. So there's the kind of the final races. November is kind of midget month, I would call it, just because really the only racing left to do is the midget swing through the West Coast. So you're going to see a little bit of that going on, which I'm actually excited to watch. I don't always get like super stoked to be a race fan from my couch, but I enjoy watching midget racing because it's so exciting. And there's actually some really nuts tracks that they're going to, specifically the Thunder Bowl. I cannot wait to watch midgets from my couch at the Thunder Bowl. Probably, I feel like it could be an amazing show. It could also be very scary. That place is gnarly in a wing car. I can't imagine without a wing on top of my head. So, just excited to see you guys all here. I'll have to jump on the stream on my phone so I can see all your guys' good comments. Like I said, let me know where you're watching from right now in my race shop in Southern Oregon. As always, it's a normal rainy day. If you've been out here in the Pacific Northwest, we've actually had probably, I feel like we're on like 5 or 6 days straight of it just downpour, and we have another 5 or 10 more to go. So there's a reason in Oregon and up this way we don't race even really into the month of September much, in October and November, because it's so wet. um, I mean, man, you can't do nothing right now. There's no way you're scheduling a race this time of year. So the only thing that you can be doing if you want to be in this area is you want to be a sim racer during the winter time, or you got to travel elsewhere. I know they were just racing down in New Mexico this weekend. Good shout out to my buddy Caleb Montgomery. He almost got it done for $10,000 at Vado. And then, like I said, the midgets are racing this coming week. And I know there's maybe a couple. Is there a couple late model races left? I don't get a chance to tune in to some of that stuff more. We have guys watching from Canada, Boise, Idaho, Southern Oregon, Minnesota, Michigan, Cincinnati, Nebraska. I've been through Nebraska, stopped a couple times there. Virginia, Tulare, Indy again, Delaware, PA, California, Michigan, New Zealand. If you're out of the country, definitely make sure to let us know. I guess that's also another thing worth touching. Now some of our friends that are all going down under, some of the drivers, whether they're in New Zealand with the Kiwis or if they're in Australia. We just saw that one race that they did in the city. I'm going to butcher the name, but you guys know what I'm talking about, in that city there in Australia. And it was actually really impressive. They put, I guess, like over $1 million invested into this thing, built this track, and it looked like a really cool deal. So that was awesome. So that's kind of some of the dirt racing that's been going on. You guys will have to let us know in the comments what you guys have been up to, how the off season's been going. Like I said, for us, we haven't raced a sprint car now since about mid-October was my last show, which was Trophy Cup. And then since then, I ran some go-kart races, which for me, I just kind of fit the go-kart races in when it makes sense. I really enjoy running with those guys down there, QRC, Jimmy Elledge, even though we haven't had a great stretch of races, just always enjoy doing that. Very close with Jimmy, very close with all those guys. It's kind of just fun to race with them. When you get to race with fun people, how much more enjoyable that is. And I mean, obviously, like our sprint car stuff is that way too. But I'm just saying, when you have a situation where you just like the people you're racing with, it's always hard to turn that down. And so for us, it really didn't make sense to run any races after the Trophy Cup. So that's just kind of where we ended our season from our standpoint, as far as all the traveling we've already done. And there's just less races to go to. And all the races after that are super long tows for, not necessarily the most money. For example, a lot of guys were asking Tanner, why were you not at the World Finals? And for example, where we're at, we're in Oregon, and the World Finals is 40 hours east. So, we're going to spend 3 days driving there, at least 3 days driving back. You just get to race a couple days, and, not crazy paying shows. So unless you ran extremely well every single night, it just stuff like that doesn't really pencil out. Now, if you're from Oklahoma, you're from Indy, you're from Ohio, it's a lot shorter jump, right? So for all those guys, of course they're going to be there, but for a team like us, yeah, it just doesn't work. So, and same for some of the races that were even a little bit closer. Would have loved to be at Vado this weekend, but that's that's a 20-hour drive for us or a little bit more. So, just it's kind of tough with where we're located, and that's part of what I would love to change with our program is, getting a little closer to everything else. Of course, that would make life just a little bit easier. So, that's kind of what has been going on. Like I said, just been doing the go kart stuff, which has kept us busy, been tearing down all of our equipment. Like I said, kind of just getting things put away well for the winter. It's important that you winterize all of your equipment with your engines and stuff, especially where we live. It's pretty cold. Our shop has heat and stuff, of course, but like I said, it gets well below freezing here, and so you're gonna have everything kind of sitting in that. So we always try to winterize all of our equipment. Of course, we're sending stuff out. We have probably sent about 3 engines out for rebuilds already. It's important that you do that early in the off season because and honestly we even try to plan to do it in August, September, which is when we sent our first one out, just to make sure you get in that line. Otherwise, if you're sending an engine out in December, and if there's other teams doing that, which there probably is, just things happen, there's not necessarily a chance you're going to get it back to start the season. So it's important that you send engines out. If you need to get rear ends rebuilt or steering gearboxes rebuilt, that's important. And then of course just start ordering all new parts. You're connecting with your manufacturers, like a Winners or a Ty 22 or Kings Racing Products, anybody that we buy from, or just the actual dealers themselves. You're connecting with them to see what's in stock, and then you can kind of spread out your off season, because for a team like us, we obviously can't order everything at once at the snap of a finger, but you're trying to get it as early as you can so you have enough time to prepare. I know in years past we honestly haven't done the best preparation, and so we're always trying to be better about that. Just saw Mike Semantis. He just dropped a $20 donation in the chat. Thank you so much, Mike. Mike and them are good people. They're from down in California. We always see them at Hanford, Thunder Bowl, and they honestly travel. They travel all the way up. There's the big Dirt Cup swing. A bunch of California fans always traveling up for that. So all my West Coast friends that are watching this, they probably know, because it always comes up in conversation. Like when I'm talking to Mike and stuff, I always say there's great racing out here, but man, if you can ever get to the Nationals, get to Eldora. So I'm always trying to convince my West Coast people to get out that way, because there's so much good to see outside the West Coast. We got some good racing, don't get me wrong, but there's some really cool stuff. So Mike dropped a question too. He said, "What do you think about Kyle Busch in a midget?" I have all positive reactions. I know there's some KB haters out there, and I always get a lot of flack, which is totally fine. I'm a loyal fan. I've never been a bandwagon type, and hopped on that. And I don't just like guys when they're winning, and then when they're Kyle has obviously struggled a little bit, especially with his change to a new team in recent years on the NASCAR end. But he's always been my favorite driver, win or lose. But I think it's really a couple things to talk about here. I think one, it tells actually a lot about the person that he is and the race car driver that he is, because it'd be very easy for someone like him in the later stages of his career to sit at home, just race when he needs to. Obviously, he makes a good living in NASCAR. He doesn't really have anything else to prove, right? He's a 2-time NASCAR champion. He's won, I think, at every single track. He's the winningest driver all time in the Xfinity series or trucks, or between all the series. I don't know, however that works. He's way up there. But for him to go dabble in micro sprints and midgets, like I said, where, people consider more grassroots level, even though it's very competitive, he doesn't need to do that, and he still is. So I think that that's really cool. And it seems like, I think a couple companies are backing that flow, and maybe Lucas Oil is on the side of the car, whatever. But I think it's very notable that people are involved and he's doing it. And he's also giving us a little bit of an inside look. They're making content about it. Necessarily even a guy like that who has so much potential and is so good, it's scary topping that stuff, and last thing you want to do is look like look like you don't know what you're doing, and he did it. So obviously him getting some laps is going to be super helpful, and honestly I feel like with some more time, he actually probably won't be he won't be bad. I know, I think he had a heat race win at the shootout a year or so ago where he came from the back, and I think he's a good race car driver. It just takes time in anything. So we'll see how he does. I'm actually rooting for him. I want him to do really, really well, and we'll kind of just see how things play out. But he's definitely a wheelman. I think he's better than 95% of the guys on the NASCAR side of things with racecraft. And so for him to do the dirt stuff, I think it's just going to make him better overall, even though, like I said, he doesn't really necessarily need to do that. Chase Jackson, he jumped in. He said, "Missed the first 10 minutes. What did I miss?" Nothing so far, man. We're just kind of covering some ground, talking up, catching up with things. Like I said, I'd love to catch up with all you guys. let us know what, what's going on your end of things. As far as where you're at, in your areas of the country, what rate, if there's any racing going on left, what's off season look like, what's your 2025, what races are you going to be going to? Like I said, it's an exciting time of the year, I think, because at least for someone like me, like I said, everything's a little slower. I have a chance to make sure I don't miss any news. I see it all kind of come across. I get to hear people's thoughts, and I really try to listen to during the off season more to some of the content that's on in front of us. The different interviews with promoters or with different series people or like Wing Nation, anything, just to kind of get an insight on why some of these the streaming companies, why the like High Limit, why the Outlaws, why they're making the decisions that they're making, why the schedule ended up how it is. All the insights, so it kind of comes full circle, especially for a race team like ours, or as guys are making decisions and trying to do stuff. It's nice to just know what we all have in front of us, right? So that's kind of what I like about this time of year. When you're racing and things are happening, honestly, I feel like during race season I miss so much because I just don't get a chance to tune in, and you're focused on your own program, right? You're focused on what you're doing. You're focused on night in, night out. And like I said, I feel like you're so zoned into that everything else in life, even that is racing related, can get missed. So Zachary, he put in the chat, good question. Are you going to run Ohio Speed Week? So as far as, man, besides certain places, I can't really give too much insight on what my schedule is going to look like. There's just too much unknown right now on what I'm running next year, what races I'll for sure be at. There's just a little too much unknown. We have the High Limit schedule. World of Outlaws schedule is not published. NARC schedule is not published. And I think every other series really hasn't, besides I think Knoxville Weekly, which is great that they come out with that. Obviously, there's probably some races on there that we'll for sure be at. But besides the normal races that are every year, the crown jewels like the nationals, probably like I'm sure we'll be back at Eldora in there's a good chance we could be back at Eldora in July. Dirt Cup, kind of the normal big ones. Everything else is kind of off the table. We just don't know. We know that it's looking like there's a good chance that we'll probably be in Vegas, I'm sure, for that opening High Limit show. But aside from all that stuff, it's really hard to know until we just have all the schedules in front of us. I don't like to jump the gun and make decisions because, especially now, they just came out with the All-Stars, which I want to talk more about that. And I want to make a video on that, as we get more information. But they just come out with the All-Stars is coming back. And like, what's that schedule going to look like? That could be big. And there's a lot of races on there that, I feel like might be worth chasing if you're in the area or something, right? So it's just all those things that you kind of just have to consider. It's really hard to make decisions ahead of time without kind of knowing everything that's going on. But like I said, if there's one race you for sure know that we're going to be at, it's Knoxville Nationals. It's that's the one that we chase every single year, obviously. And I would say also the Dirt Cup, that's a big one at Skagit that, I mean, it's 62,000 to win. They actually haven't even came out with the purse. We never know. It could be increased this year, but a lot of good stuff. Sorry, I'm laughing. My buddy Chase Rodman put a funny question there. Is there a difference between Missouri and Missouri? Shout out to Rodman, by the way. He's been posting a lot of great content on here. I tune into a lot of his stuff to kind of keep up to date with the news, and never know if we make it on the channel too. Thomas Rice had a good question asking about what equipment that we run and how is that maybe different from anyone else. So in sprint car racing, there's a lot of different manufacturers. That's one thing I think that is kind of cool and unique about our sport is there's not just kind of one set thing. You have a lot of options and there's a lot of combinations that go fast. And I think more than anything, it's not necessarily the equipment that you have. I mean, your engine package has to be strong, but as far as the components and the cars and everything, obviously you want well-built stuff. It's important how it's put together, but I would say more than anything, it's how you're setting it up. What's your recipe? When I say recipe, I'm talking about your setups. What's your setup look like? What changes do you make throughout the night? All of our cars are made by Triple X in Washington, and we have Ryder Racing engines for all of our 410 stuff. So Ryder's out of Pennsylvania, Triple X is out of Washington. I feel like that's a very normal car combo in the sense of like, there's Triple X's that are racing on the national level, regional level, local level. Just like there's also Maxims or the She cars. Sorry, I just butchered pronouncing that. And like I said, lots of other brands. There's some guys that make their own stuff, or like a J&J. There's a couple of those at the high level. So guys just run a lot of different things. And out here, there's some cars that are just made that guys run out here, and I'm sure there's out on the East Coast cars that are just made and guys run out there. like I said, at the end of the day, I think a lot of different combinations can win. It's more who's the driver behind the wheel that's working with the crew chief that's, making it go fast, or whoever's making it go fast. I think that's probably the most important part. Aaron asked, "Have you ever considered driving a micro sprint?" I always talk about this, but where I'm located, it's very difficult. It just has never, believe it or not, the stars have just never aligned for me to drive a micro. Um, and there's no micro racing super close to me. Like I got to travel about 5, 6 hours to do any micro racing. So I've just never been there, or even been at like a test or something where like, hey, you want to hop in this car? And like obviously in a situation like that, you're gonna do it. But I've um I've just never worked out for me. So I've driven a midget, which I figured a midget is probably gonna feel similar to a non-wing micro, just a little less power for the micro, but definitely want to do it. Evan just answered this. He asked about the engine builder. So like I said, all of our engines are built by Ryder Racing Engines, which they're very popular. They're out of Pennsylvania. For 410 engines, that's the only engine I've ever ran in my own cars. When I ran for Shark Racing, we ran all their engines, or Newman Racing engines, which those things ran extremely well too. And it's really cool. That was one of the coolest parts about driving for Shark Racing was, you're at their shop in Pennsylvania, and like 3 minutes down the road's the engine shop, and obviously they just got engines and they're constantly working on it. As that's a much tighter program. They don't build engines for as many guys. So yeah, just really cool to kind of see the differences. But most times I would say all of our engines are built very close. I'm sure every builder to builder does different things. I don't know all that's the smart stuff, so I don't want to like sound smarter than I am and talk about it. But horsepower wise, I feel like on the dyno, a lot of them are close, and the torque is close. It's just I think more than anything, what people probably get mistaken in racing. Obviously, there's a time when you do want way more power, but more than anything, I think, especially with the tires that we have to run nowadays, everybody just wants the most like something that's the most drivable. You can have an engine, I feel like, that makes damn near 1,000 horsepower, but if you can't drive the thing and you can't keep it in a straight line, you're not doing yourself any good either. And as a driver, when you're driving a car that feels like it's going faster than you, I feel like that's one of the more scarier times, in the sense of it can be exhausting. You're not processing things right. You're not driving as good because you're not just able to be settled. You feel like the car's driving you and you're not driving the car. But when you have an engine that is fast, but it's smooth, you're getting power to the ground, your car's set up right, and it's all working together. It's crazy how 120 miles an hour can feel like you're going 50, and everything's in slow motion. So it's interesting how from night to night that can change, and obviously track surfaces and condition. There's a lot of factors, but I can tell you that on a night where, things are going really good, everything feels like you're in point 0.5, you're in slow motion. But when things are not going good, it feels like you're going 1,000 miles an hour. And that really sucks. Someone Freedom put in the chat, we want more of John, my dad. Yeah, he pops in the videos from time to time. He's usually trucking around, or he's busier now than ever. But yeah, we always enjoy getting him in. uh Good question here. Have you considered driving a modified or a dirt car at some point? I've had a couple opportunities. It just, like I said, another one of those things that doesn't work out. I feel like my schedule too ends up being so busy, it's hard to find time just to necessarily hop in anything else. But always try to get it fit in if it ever works. Peyton had a good question. Chili Bowl plans. So I've kind of talked a little bit about this. I'll just touch on it for a minute. I should have a little bit more out here soon, which means there's probably a good chance I'm going to be at Chili Bowl. I wasn't sure if I was originally going to do it. Actually, I was kind of planning on maybe not, just kind of taking the off season to kind of get some things ready here and take some more time. But had some stuff pop up, so I'll be probably announcing that here in a couple weeks and what my Chili Bowl plans will look like. But there's a good chance you'll catch me back inside that building. Let's see. Couple people jumped in here, said they love watching us run the outlaw cart stuff in the wintertime. I know it's a little different. It's not everyone's favorite, but I just try to at least keep you guys busy and entertained. Sometimes, like I said, there's not much going on, and you can only talk about so much shop stuff, or only do so much where it's like, hey, it's time to get out and get some action going. Right? Oh, Jacob Brown had a good question. But in theory, you've got an opportunity to race in any state you want for full point season. What state are you choosing and what car? I would say if I could race anywhere, and like maybe this isn't going to be the most popular, um, but if I could race anywhere, probably for points, I would say I'd probably, if it was if it was, which it actually is, it's very good paying, but I would say probably Knoxville for points in the state of Iowa would be my favorite, just because I really like Knoxville. I know it's a great racetrack. I know some people they would rather, if they could only run one track, they'd probably pick a smaller place, maybe a quarter mile or a 3/8. But I feel like for me, I would really like running Knoxville. I just love the consistency of the place. You feel comfortable there as a driver, and it's just awesome. So I would definitely say that Knoxville would be a great place. I know it's kind of been more on the come up lately, and obviously I would actually have this opportunity if I really wanted to do it. But honestly, running Skagit even too. Skagit had a really good year this last year as far as building some stuff up and just having a really good weekly program. And I feel like that's another great place like to race on a weekly basis and stuff. How they kind of do things, and they run a quick show and pay really well, have a good point fund. So little stuff like that is what I kind of pay attention to. So if we're talking an actual, realistically, then I would say, Skagit for kind of closer to here. If I was out there, I would definitely be running Knoxville for points. I think this year they just upped the purse. It went from 6,000 to win last year to 6,000 to win, but instead of upping the top, everyone always looks at the top, and they upped the bottom of the purse. So I think they went from $700 to start to 1,000, which is a very big jump, right? That's $300 in everyone's pocket every week that makes the show. So little things like that is why a place like Knoxville and the sprint car capital of the world are what they are. Like I said, they easily could have made it 7,000 to win and 700 to start, but they made it 6,000 to win and 1,000 to start. And they're helping the guys that are, making the show work every week. Obviously, the guy that wins should definitely be rewarded, but without the guys that are, 16th through 24th, if those guys don't show up, we only have a 16 car field instead of a 24 car field. That's not as much of a race. So pretty cool that they're rewarding all teams. And I think more places should probably, if they can, with all means necessary, consider, making jumps like that. You guys can keep dropping your questions here in the chat. Always enjoy seeing so many of you guys here. Someone asked if I'm doing any iRacing this off season. So I actually haven't, man, I'm embarrassed to say it, but I haven't played iRacing in a couple years now. And probably about 2 years, just because, like I said, life gets so busy. And then I go to hop on there and the cars are so different and stuff. I just don't get a chance to adjust. And um, they're just difficult. And then I'm behind. So I actually been trying to make it a little bit more of a priority to do that, because I actually think that in some ways iRacing in the off season is not a bad thing. Like I said, just to loosen you up and allow you to get going and just race and have your brain kind of thinking. Like I said, you can always use it as a good tool. So I'm kind of working on doing that. I got to put my steering wheel back together and kind of get things all set up. But I haven't ran a lot of the new tracks on there, so I would be kind of fun just to have like a game night and do that. Mike had said something. He said, looking forward to our plans for 2025. And if you're going to be at PRI, to give him a shout. Well, we will be at PRI. I'm excited about that. If any of you fans are going to be there, I'm sure you'll see me walking around. PRI is an awesome little deal there in Indiana. A chance to go around, see all the manufacturers, different people that support, shake hands with guys. And I went last year for the first time, and I'm excited to go back. So that'll be really cool. That's coming up here in a couple weeks. And um, someone asked, what is PRI? So basically, it's one of like the largest motorsports trade shows in the world. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana. There's like over 1,400 booths, I feel like, and couple big buildings full of just, like I said, booths and companies that are involved in the sport, manufacturers, racing series, anybody, like I said, in any way. And they obviously are there to promote their product, show off what they're doing, but at the same time, it's a place to connect. There's also, with your membership or what you paid to get into the event, they also have all day long they have different talks going on with public speaking, and you can listen in on different parts of the industry that you want to be educated more on. And like I said, it's awesome. I think if you're a race fan and you're really into it, it's worth going to. It is 3 days. You probably don't need to go to all 3 days. Like for us, we'll probably just go to the first two, because usually by the final night, it's so packed and there is a lot more fans that it's like, everyone's kind of already over it. They're like, all right, we've done this, and they're ready to all pack their stuff up and leave. So just kind of hit it hard the first couple days and see what everyone's doing. And like I said, it's a chance to also get a sneak peek on on new stuff, new technology. What are these companies trying to do to improve? And a lot of times they'll share that before it actually hits the market there at PRI. So I think it's pretty cool. And like I said, it's if you're trying to if you're trying to advance yourself in the sport and you want to go far and you want to do all that, I think that PRI is kind of a must. So it's probably something I should have started doing sooner than I did. But glad that we went last year. I'll be back this year. So we just getting all that booked so we can head out that way in a couple weeks. Ooh, Mel had a great question. So I'm gonna answer this, but I have more to talk about in a video that I already had planned. He said, "Are you gonna add the tire inflation system when you run high limit? What does it cost?" And fill us in on what Carly is up to. Okay, so I don't want to speak too much because I don't know everything about it. I'm not an expert yet. But basically, the tire inflation system, pumps air into the tire to allow that when the tires cool down under a yellow or whatever, it keeps the air pressure up to. I think they said that the inflation system can keep them as high as 9.5 pounds. A lot of times, your right rear, you're going to run a little lower pressure than that, and then the bleeder will bleed off the extra air or whatever it pushes it over. So let's say if you're running 8.5 pounds, then I think if it starts, going over that, then the bleeder will, let it out back to that. And so I'm not really sure how I feel about it yet. I've seen a couple different takes, and I've been really trying to listen to what other drivers have to say. As far as like I said, I kind of had my original opinion, which I feel like I was not really for it right away. Obviously it's just an extra cost. I believe it's like I think it's over $1,000 for the system, maybe a little more than 1,000. I don't know, and it attaches onto the bleeder. But I felt like to me, it seemed like it was a little just like something that might have been more unnecessary. Like I said, for a while, probably a couple years ago, we were running the old school bleeders that just went right in the wheel. They weren't even electronic, and those are much cheaper than our, $1,500 electronic bleeders. So, in my opinion, the electronic bleeders, although they make things easier, are they necessarily the most needed thing? Like I said, as far as raising costs for our sport, I think that's something we really have to keep an eye on. So there's that. But another good point I saw a driver mention is obviously more the safety aspect of it because probably you don't realize, but a lot of times under those yellows and as there's tire wear, tires cool off, and a lot of times guys wreck race cars because of a right rear going down, or they get in the corner, they get balled up, they tip over. And so I think the whole point of this inflation system is try to avoid more guys wearing their stuff out because their air pressure is not correct on restarts or after long reds and stuff. So I think that there is pros and cons. Which way am I leaning? I don't really know yet. I still feel like it's one of those things that maybe if we just kept things a little bit more old school, it might just be better overall for the sport. Like I said, cost wise and stuff like that. But at the same time, I know that innovation does happen, and in technology can be a good thing. So I'm not really sure. I just haven't. I need to do a little bit more of my own research and inform some more opinion. But I do want to talk more about that. I think it's something that's is interesting, especially too if you can only run it with high limit, but you can't run it with other series. That's the part that I don't really like. Obviously, I wish that it'd be nice if we just had one deal across the board, but at the same time, then some of the smaller teams on a regional level or local racing feel like, well, if they don't have that, they don't have an advantage. And I feel like overall that can run people out of the sport. So I don't really know yet. It's really hard to say, but it's definitely interesting. And we haven't ran it yet. It sounds like some teams have been running it for quite some time, and it was kind of under the radar. So, was that an advantage for them? Possibly, probably. I mean, it definitely helps, like I said, right away when your air pressure is not correct. Bobby had a good question. Bobby said, "How are you going to qualify better this season? Just need to shave off a couple tenths." So that's a good question. Thank you for the donation. Man, I feel like there's no real secret to necessarily qualifying better. A lot of it is, I think it starts with hot lapping better. When you unload well at a place and you get ripping right away, then usually the better you hot lap, the better you qualify. Like I said, I don't think there's really necessarily any secret. I think your pill draw obviously matters from night to night. Sometimes it matters more, sometimes it matters less. But there's a lot of times when like this year we went out and there was cars behind us that went faster or cars that went faster ahead of us. So I think, like I said, honestly, I always look at just how can you lay down the best lap possible and get the most out of the track condition that you are presented. And like I said, I think more than anything, qualifying better starts with hot lapping better, and just getting a couple more out of those hot laps so you can make the right adjustments for qualifying, or give a little better feedback, or like I said, just kind of pick up on things. So I think it's also too figuring out how to run, like, in I don't know how to if this makes sense. There's only 2 laps, so it's kind of hard, but if you can technically qualify when if you can lay down one really solid first lap, and then your second lap is kind of when you can push it. If you could do that every single night, I feel like that's when you qualify really well, because like I said, you lay down a good solid first lap, and that second lap you kind of your first lap was good enough to put you in a position that you can kind of go all out and try to get that little bit extra. That's when you have 2 perfect laps. Now, it's usually really hard to do that, but um, that's really all I could say as far as trying to qualify better. It's a difficult thing to do. Let's see. I just got another donation here. Have you ever seen the Payless Little 500? Thank you, Mistaken Reaper 22 for the $2. I have not. You guys will have to give me more information on what that is about. I have not even heard about that, so I don't know if that's something like a what that looks like, but be interested to know. It's always cool hearing about like different races that are going on, and sometimes guys throwing cars together to go do them, or if they're street cars or whatever. So I appreciate you with for the $2, and you'll have to give some more information on what that's about. Cannon asked, "Did you hear the All Stars are coming back?" Yeah, we just talked about that a minute ago. I'm not really sure. It's kind of hard to know without more details coming out what that, if that's going to be positive for sprint car racing, um, what that all is going to look like. If it's going to be an Ohio-based series, I think that's good for Ohio. At the same time, they have, the Fast Series is still there, so I don't know how. I know that they'll probably be able to coexist, but what does that look like? Is the All Stars going to be back to what the All Stars were, where they're traveling a bunch? I think that almost would be a little better than just being a series right there in Ohio. It'd be nice if they traveled towards Iowa, maybe went to Pennsylvania, anything like that. I think them to only stay in one state would not be doing them as good. But I don't know. I'm not from out there as much, so I don't know some of the ins and outs on why it would or wouldn't. But just from a distance, it seems like if they were a little closer what the All Stars used to be, then that would be better. Another thing to think about too is there's some other series that are kind of trying to build what the All Stars kind of had, or from what it sounds like maybe. For example, PRI, they've been building their series, been doing a great job. And it seemed like they wanted to keep expanding their schedule. So, like, where do these guys start kind of overlapping? And when do we have too many races? When do we have not enough races? How does that all coexist? So, there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there. Freedom Checks, he sent 19 or $20 donation. Thank you so much, with a balloon and a number one. Thank you so much, man, for supporting the channel. Um, Someone said, Tanner, do you see iRacing adding outlaw carts in the future? Probably not. I feel like they're a little too niche. So I don't think iRacing will probably do that. It'd be really cool. It'd be cool if they added a lot more stuff, but with how much scanning and technology they have to do, I know they have a difficult job. So I would say it's probably unlikely. Nate Hopkins said, "Are you going to Route 66 with high limit?" As I said earlier, I can't confirm really many dates because we just don't have all the schedules in front of us. But Route 66 looked like an awesome track. I'll give them a lot of credit. If that's the same place that we just watched the Outlaws at that you're talking about, looked like a pretty fun racetrack, and they had it on a good time of the year where there wasn't as much going on. Freedom Check says, "Is that shirt for sale?" The shirt that I'm wearing, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. If you're talking about this shirt or the um, next comment after that, Tanner, come see the Classic in Warner Bowl, Australia. We have lots of Americans come and race. One of these years, I'm going to get down there, man. I promise you. I've actually been trying to work on that more. Things just haven't really aligned with my schedule and timing and stuff. But um, and just the right opportunity, I feel like hasn't come across. But one of these days, I want to make it happen. Love to run a lot of the tracks down there. I mean, Perth looks amazing. Warrnambool looks amazing. New Zealand's got Rapuna, and Western Springs is about to go. Looks like a lot of amazing tracks between the two countries. You guys got some really cool stuff going on down there. Vincent, he $1,000 offer for your helmet. I apologize. Obviously, $1,000 is a lot of money, but I have a really hard time getting rid of the gear that I use to race, especially helmets. Suits, I'm not as attached to. Suits, because I have a lot more suits. You're changing suits on paint schemes and partners and sponsors, but helmets, I feel like say usually a little more about your personality, and they're just a little more custom to you. You don't get, at least me, I don't have, I've only ever had 3 or 4 painted helmets in my whole career. Um, where suits last year I had 4 custom suits in one season. So I don't really like to get rid of I don't like to get rid of helmets, but maybe one day, I don't know. But uh, to me they're just worth so much more. So I mean it would have to be a stupid amount of money that doesn't make any sense for you, any of you guys, but you know what I mean? Like I just feel too attached to all my helmets and stuff, but um it'd be interesting to know what you guys think. Any of the gear you use to race, like what are you attached to? What are you not? Obviously, like gloves and shoes and stuff like that, you just use so much more of. But like I said, the helmet to me is stuff I don't like to get rid of too much. Oh, Greg had a good question. He said, Tanner, do you support putting a fire system on sprint cars to improve safety? I'm not sure if you have one now or not. So I do have a fire suppression system with the World of Outlaws and with High Limit and a lot of tracks nowadays. You're actually required to have it. So we've had one in our car, and even before the one that's mandated now, we had a different system. We actually had two um, through 2019 through 2021, or whenever I got into sprint car racing until they mandated this new fire bottle. We had a different brand. The bottles were a little smaller, and we had one like underneath my seat and one behind my seat, in between the fuel line that kind of goes into the bladder and into the shell, on the right side of the seat. So we kind of had one to cover down by my feet, and then one to kind of cover behind my back. Um, and they were much smaller bottles, so it made more sense. Now the one that's on our car weighs like 7 pounds or something, and like I said, it's a lot bigger. So I do support them. I think that you can never go wrong with safety. How do you put a price on safety? I think the systems are like 700 or 800 bucks. But I mean, like I said, what's your life worth? Now, with that, my only counter to it is I think that it's easy to put that dollar amount on the teams and not improve the safety of all the tracks we're going to, improve investing in fire, having crews and people that are properly trained. Now, I feel like as this all has come up, that there's been more of that from tracks, and tracks have had better safety crews, and so I think everything's heading in the right direction. I just think it has to be on both sides, right? Like, so if us teams are going to be investing money, as we should be to improve our safety, and like I said, what is your life worth? I also think though the top series, the Outlaws, High Limit, and the tracks should be kind of doing the same thing. And like I said, I feel like that lately it seems like that's been more positive. Like I said, at a place like Knoxville, or even not to bring up Skagit again, but Skagit, like two places that have really really good safety crews. I know High Limit had, I think it was the MedStar guys that were following along all year, and man, what a blessing it was to have them. I know that there was a couple crucial situations. I don't really want to talk about them, but this year where those guys came into play for a couple crashes, and they might have even changed the outcome of how things to the extent, because they were there. So man, that's just props that High Limit had that. And like I said, I think as a driver, you just feel a lot safer, and it's nice to know that they have. You don't want to focus on anything like that, but you always remember that you have that in the back pocket. And like I said, I think that that's great, especially as some of the places we go to aren't as prepared as some of the big tracks. Let's see. A couple questions on: are you going to the Gateway Nationals? I am. I'm not going to Gateway. One of these years, I need to make it. I probably need to. Obviously, it'd be fun to race, but more than anything, I'd probably want to go there and just be a race fan. It looks like it's amazing inside the dome. A couple people saying come to Indiana. I've driven through the state of Indiana. I don't think I've. Yeah, we didn't have any races in Indiana. We drove there when we were going from Knoxville to Eldora. There's some bumpy roads. There's some bumpy roads on the interstate there. Robert said, "Do you prefer a dry slick track or a tacky hammer down track with lots of grip?" So, in a perfect world, I always would love a tacky, or sorry, wait, what am I saying? A dry slick racetrack. I'm not a big fan of tacky racetracks, I guess, unless you start on the pole. If you start up front, then they're not too bad. But honestly, I think too, more than ever, when you get to the higher levels of racing, and um, whatever, like night to night just gets so different. Like to me, I feel like I want to run on like if my car's good and things feel great, and honestly, it doesn't matter the track conditions, right? But um, in a perfect world, a little bit drier racetrack. I feel like when it's not bone slick, but kind of just a little bit of grip and it's almost a little dirty, where you can kind of, carry good speed, but you also, it's changing a lot. What I mean by dirty is usually when the bottom's got enough grip that it's kind of throwing grip across the track and, and it allows it to usually when a track's like that, it doesn't take rubber as fast because you're moving around and you're not running directly on top of a hard surface. Like that's kind of that in between stage, I feel like is one of my favorite. Because then usually, you're starting to grab a lot more wing, you're starting to need grip. And if you can attack in those moments, man, I feel like you can gain a lot of speed because some guys will still be going really fast. Some guys will start slowing up because they can't really tell is the track slicking off, is their car underneath them, if is their fuel load burning off. Like all those factors are huge. And I feel like that's something as a driver I really want to work on this next year because, like I said, that's a crucial time in the race, and that happens a lot. And especially when you're up front, you can really read what's going on and take advantage and put some distance between you and the rest of the field if you get rolling. So, um, bone slick is really cool as long as your car's good enough to handle that. And there's a couple places like that that I have been. Sharon Speedway is a good example. I do love that. I do love bone slick, especially if it doesn't take rubber. But sometimes these places nowadays, it seems like anywhere that gets too slick too fast, usually, like I said, we're just killing tires all night, and it ends up turning into a rubber fest. So if there's a place more like a Sharon where they can kind of not have that happen, man, that place is a hidden gem. It's just we don't see many like it. Oh, good question. APX PDR, he said, Tanner, on a race night, what is your favorite food? So actually, I'm pretty unique. I don't try to eat much on race days. I mean, I do in the morning, and I try to eat like an hour or two before the pit meeting. But then after that, I try not to eat until after the night. So I don't eat in the middle of the night because I don't I don't want to screw nothing up and kind of change how you feel, especially if you have a night that's going really late. If you eat, it can make you feel tired, can make you feel lazy. And so the I hate to even admit this. This is I don't do this much, but the only time I'll maybe eat is if I'm absolutely starving. I'm having such a bad night because something happened or whatever. I'm like, at this point, it doesn't really matter. I'm already in the back. So like I might as well eat and then, not be hungry and then go out there and just try to rip. Like I said, all that stuff probably doesn't matter much. Just for me, I just try to be a little mindful of it. And that's why I try to eat earlier in the day so it kind of settles, drink lots of water. I have some different stuff that I drink that kind of try to give me a little bit of energy and some natural like vitamins or whatever, just like everything to feel good and go out there and roll. Lots of questions here in the chat. Want to thank you guys all again for being here. It's always great to see you guys, and like I said, I hope you guys are having a great off season. Ooh, this is a good question. So I do these so much that obviously sometimes I get a lot of the same people asking things. But Hillbilly Hebrew, he said, "Do you consider your YouTube channel as a sponsor? If you do they have any plans to promote your channel?" Oh, I see how you're saying this. So are you saying you consider YouTube as a sponsor? Um, I don't really consider so I don't consider my channel necessarily. I mean, I guess you could say it's a sponsor. Um, yeah, I guess you could say that. I don't really consider it. I don't know. That'd be like asking, I guess, like if you have a powder coating company and like you have a powder coating company that you own and then you race. Do you consider that your own sponsor? Like not necessarily. I guess it just like help feeds your what you're trying to do. Do I consider YouTube themselves as a sponsor? No, because um, I mean, I guess I said I'm not really sure how to answer. I would say no, just because obviously they just have their platform, and you're allowed to opt into it or opt out of it or be participate in it, and they don't give you any benefits depending on what you're doing. If they came to myself, or if they came to another racing channel and they actually did agree to promote you or to give you, I guess, a better deal because of what you did, then you would consider that. But as far as on YouTube, from everything I know, I think most people are all on the same. Everything's kind of the same across the board. They're in this business too, because I mean, YouTube's huge, so I'm sure that they're doing just fine. But they probably also don't really need to necessarily do that, right? A lot of us, we need the platform of YouTube, and or we want to be on here, and like I said, it's just kind of a mutually beneficial thing. Someone asked, "Will you defend the Marvin Smith Memorial?" I'll have to see how it plays out. If I am close to home though on that weekend, I got the trophy actually sitting just right over here, so I need to take it back. But definitely would like to defend that. That's one of Oregon's bigger races, and usually draws quite a few people, quite a few cars. So it's always nice to be at. Bo asks, "Would you ever consider coming to Weed Sport?" I would love to come to Weed Sport because I hear that that place is similar to Sharon as far as how slick it gets. Looks like it's kind of a weird shape, but would like to get there one day. A couple of people were asking about me moving to the Midwest and what I'm thinking there. Definitely would love to get out there still. I don't know how my path's gonna go. It's one of those things I feel like you just kind of I take you take week by week and you kind of keep exploring all your options. You keep your options open on what to do, and I don't see myself. I talked about 2025 being the year where I really want to get out there, but we'll kind of just see how things play out. I think it's, like I said, there's a lot of want, but it's just a hard thing. And maybe situations got to be right or things gotta make sense. So, we'll kind of see. I think after we kind of get the season rolling and then here, like I said, in a couple weeks, we'll have some more announcements coming your way that will kind of help connect the puzzle pieces on where we're at and, how things are going to look going into next season. And, what kind of traveling and what, like I said, once we can see our schedules and stuff, then I think it'll all make more sense. But the plan is to be out there more than ever and be racing as, I would say I might have the biggest schedule of my career this next year. Um, and I think that is the goal. I feel like where I'm at, I definitely need to be racing as much as I can. At the same time, though, a smart schedule that, maybe you race really hard when you can, but also allow for a little time off. It is a long year when you start racing in March. And then for us, like I said, by the time run some stuff in the winter and you race all year, there's not much time off. Like I even look at, I'm here in November and this is the first time I've been home on a Saturday since, unless I'm exaggerating, I'm missing a race, but I really think this is the first Saturday I've been home since like June or something crazy. So, yeah, pretty nuts. 17M Racing, he said, was your favorite track you've ever been to? I don't have any, like, it's really always hard to pick a specific track, but a couple of my favorites that if I was going there tomorrow, I'd be super excited. 81 Speedway in Park City, Kansas, Knoxville Raceway, Skagit's always a good one. Lakeside Speedway in Kansas, Port Royal in Pennsylvania. Honestly, I get pretty excited about Eldora too. Eldora is just cool. So if we were going to Eldora tomorrow, I'd probably be pretty excited. There's this really cool track in Ohio that I ran well at. I don't know how I would do going back there because I only went once. But Muskingum County, that place, I'm dusty as can be. Uh, but just a couple that, any place you run well at in the past, Jackson and Motorplex was a place we ran well at with Shark Racing. Even like Devil's Bowl, that place was, obviously rest in peace Devil's Bowl, but that was a place we ran well the one night we ran. So just trying to think of places you had good results and what it felt like that night running well and how you could be better. So like stuff like that gets exciting. We got a good question here. Mel asked earlier, and I forgot to say Carly update. So Carly, what has Carly been up to? So of course she's been helping do stuff here. She's been working a little bit lately, and then Carly was actually planning on getting back behind the wheel soon, but that got she was going to run some outlaw kart stuff, but that got held up because she started having some more problems with her foot. And so she's working through that now. I think she has a couple weeks left of some therapy where they were, trying to use shock waves and some stuff with their foot to get more like side to side movement in. Or maybe it was up and down. I don't know. She doesn't have movement one way or the other. I can't remember what it is. But she was having quite a few problems with that. And so they've been, really working with her through that. And at first it was okay. It seemed like everything was healing right. And then more towards the end of the year and just things get crazy. You don't get things looked at right away, or you think that, your foot's just tight or a muscle's not right or something. And so by the time finally everything got looked at, they're like, all right, yeah, we need to take this very seriously. And so, now they've been doing that. And, that kind of halted her from getting back in the car because she was going to try to race in October. And then it was like, well, no, we are not. They didn't clear her to race. Like she was clear to race at first, but then once she started having problems, they're like, hey, we would recommend that you don't. And now she's just a couple weeks away from hopefully, like I said, they're trying to get that movement back, and they've been doing all sorts of stuff. So she's been pretty busy. I guess it wouldn't be at the hospital, but wherever that would be, at the physical therapist and stuff, working on that for her foot because, your foot's got to heal right. With an injury like that, obviously her back injury was bad, but her foot in ways is worse because you walk on your feet, man, and there's so many bones. And when you crush it like she did, uh, it's just hard for everything to be the same again. So anyway, working through that, but she's done a great job. She's obviously a trooper and hasn't slowed her down much. She just wants to get it right so she can, try to race again and figure out what she wants to do next. Let's see. Sean asked if we're still friends with Bobby and Shark Racing. Absolutely. Bobby calls me from time to time and we talk and catch up. And seems like those guys got a lot of cool stuff going on there. Obviously, they, between Logan and Jake, they've been racing a lot and doing well. Like I said, our paths cross, when High Limit was out here, then when the Outlaws were out here. And, Bobby always checks in on me. So we're friends for life. And it's always cool hearing, hearing what he's done. And he's such a legend in the sport. So even if I ever have any advice or trying to figure out a situation or whatever, he'll be one of the people that I call. Riley asked, "Hey Tanner, are you coming to Amarillo, Texas when high limit sprint cars are down here April 4th?" As I said earlier, I can't confirm any race days because I just don't know yet until the schedules, but I think that would be a cool place to go. I've actually watched some video from there in Amarillo. Cool place. We obviously always stop there when we roll through the big Texan and stuff. And it'd be kind of nice to explore that area more. As we've driven through a lot, we just, it's kind of like anything. When you're trucking up and down the road, you drive through a lot of drive by a lot of cool stuff. And a lot of times you don't even know what's there. Right. So one of these days we'll actually get to spend some more time. Uh, Darian said, "I'm considering getting an in-car camera. What do you recommend?" I probably need to do some more research before I really recommend you. I just use a GoPro, but I have been having some more problems with my GoPros lately. Mainly just recording long enough. The quality's great, the audio's great, but trying to record 25 or 30 minutes, they have problems. They get hot, they shut off, their file corrupts. So I don't know. I haven't really found a great solution to it yet. There's a couple cameras I'm going to research this off season and maybe switch my stuff over to, but the GoPros usually do good and they usually work for a little bit. But once you start having problems, like I said, they freeze and the batteries go to junk and just have not had any luck with any of that stuff. Someone, "Hey Tanner, do you like your water?" I do. It's the cold season, so I'm a little. I mean, I'm not like super sick or nothing. I just just kind of the sore throat type deal, being outside, whatever. And so I've been pushing through that this weekend. I'm totally good. Just a little water helps. Um, Zach said, "Would you come and run in Michigan? Which track would you go to?" So I don't remember which one it was. There was a really good race, I feel like this year on the high limit schedule. I don't remember what track it was at though. Whatever that place was, I thought it was in Michigan, was really cool. And then I don't remember if I-96 is still open. I feel like it's probably not still open, or if it is, that place always looked cool. I remember watching some old All-Star videos from there. Looked like an awesome, awesome racetrack. Mike said, "Are you dropping any new merch in time for the holidays? Need to start my Christmas shopping." No, not really, Mike. Everything that we have on there is what's on there. I have one new shirt actually I do need to add that we had at I think one of the final races, but just finally getting all that organized. With having the merch trailer and stuff, we had that thing packed full, and then we tried. Now we're trying to unpack it so we can. I'm going to take it into a shop and get the brakes looked at and get tires looked at, the axles, make sure everything's okay. The last thing we want to do, it's bad enough when you have a problem with your primary rig, but sometimes if you have a problem with the merch trailer, then that can slow you down too. Whether it's a flat, blown tire, you just never know. I've seen all sorts of horror stories or heard, being out on the road. So as we increase our schedule, it's important that you increase your maintenance on all that. So right now, like I said, main thing, we got most of the merch out of it. We just got to do a little more, do some cleaning, send that thing in, get it looked at, and then maybe even stow it away for a couple months, try to find somewhere to put it inside so it's not out in the weather and the elements. But thank you, Bobby Orr, for another $5. He said, "Is Salina High Bank still the fastest track you've been on, and would you race it again? You ran the great there." So I would say probably felt like the fastest track I've ever raced at. Would I race it again? I would say I would say so. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm probably square down the middle. Um, I didn't even look and see if it was on the schedule, I guess. To me, I feel like it's a little for 410 wing sprint cars as fast as we're going nowadays. I feel like it's just a little too fast. I really think it's at minimum, it's borderline for sure. I feel like you're just playing with fire a little bit there. It's a cool racetrack. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and when it slows down a little bit, it races really good and it still races really fast. But it it's a cool racetrack. Like I said, it's just nowadays we just got so much horsepower, and when there's that much banking, and then also too not having an outside wall. And I don't know if it's better with or without an outside wall because you could argue, I guess, going head on in the wall is not great, but like how McFadden flew over the top. I just feel like eliminating situations like that. I feel like that's just not a good situation. I do not want to be in a spot where when you go off the track, you're gaining altitude before you start going down. Because when you ramp up like that, so I don't know. Like I said, amazing facility, amazing racetrack. Everything about it's really cool. It's just a little too fast, man. I won't lie. Tyler said I'd be interested in seeing the 18T tackle Williams Grove and Port Royal. I know I would like to see that too. Mainly Port Royal would be cool. Williams Grove would be cool too. Be interesting. I always thought how my own car would go around there because Williams Grove's just a hard racetrack, man. It's so weird. And you know, it's one of those places, at least when I ran there with Shark, it feels like when your car feels okay and you're going good, it's awesome. And man, when you don't feel good, you're just like, okay, when's the race going to be over? Like you're winged over, you're going down this long straightaway, you go underneath this bridge, and then you're like trying to slow way down for the corner. And yeah, it's a different beast. Cloudsy said, "Hey Tanner, why don't you stay on the West Coast more so you're closer to home?" Man, for me, like, I just want to travel. There's just a lot more opportunity outside of the West Coast. And so I try to make it a priority. That's why we do travel. There's not as much racing here. And honestly, in some ways, you're going to spend just as much racing on the West Coast, travel wise, expense, being away from home. Um, then once you get out to the Midwest and how you can race at a lot more tracks way closer, you can race more for better purses, bigger events, more people. So there's just a little bit better ROI once you get out there. Yeah, you have the fuel and the cost, a couple days of time to get from here to out there. But once you're out there, man, there's really no difference. And in some ways it's cheaper. Z-Man said, "So would you never consider a full-time NARC campaign?" Man, NARC's a good series, and they obviously have quite a few races. For me, I just feel like we want to, we want to travel a little bit more, so it's hard to commit to a full-time series that kind of runs all year or is spread out enough where it's all year. You can't really go do some of the stuff that we want to do by running the full NARC schedule, if that makes sense. So, um, we always end up running a good amount of their races. We're just never in the points because we don't run every night. And like I said, there's a couple tracks too that there's just a couple places that are on the schedule that I just don't really care to go to. So that's also kind of why we just opt out and do what's best for us. Justin said, "Sorry, late joining. You come into PRI, and when will you release your schedule?" Okay, so I will be going to PRI. Yes, we talked about that, and then probably my schedule will be out. I would say in December sometime. Once we can see what the NARC schedule looks like, once we can see the Outlaws, the All Stars, Power Eye schedule, all that stuff. Right. Once we can see all the schedules across the board, sit down and say this is what's best for us. Then we'll have a schedule out for you guys. Appreciate so many of you guys being on here. It's been awesome chatting with you. You guys know I just love to talk, even when I'm a little sick and it's tough to talk. Just awesome to be, talk about racing stuff and during this time of year, like I said, we're all itching to get things kind of going for 2025. It's going to be here before we know it. It's kind of funny how that all works, right? You get to the off season, you're like, man, I'm so excited, and then you kind of start itching, and like I said, before you know it, it's going to be first week of March, or I guess first week of February would really be when things get going. Because if you're on the Outlaws, you got to be in Volusia, and if you're running ASCS or some of those races, I don't know if they're point shows, but I think the ASCS schedule writes end of January. So man, that's going to be here in 2 months. That's 8 weeks away. That actually feels stressful to say. Obviously, we're not going and doing that. That's the opposite side of the country. But for the guys that are, man, 8 weeks away is not that far. That's wow. So we'll see how all that plays out, but one of these years I definitely want to go down there and do all that. It's just like kind of same deal as the World Finals. Like we're here in Southern Oregon and it's like 41 hours to Volusia, Florida. So a little bit of a distance for that early in the year and with weather and there's just a lot more risk than, it's different when we go to Knoxville National. It's only 30 hours away, middle of summer. Those races are going to happen. They're going to get in. See what I'm saying? So all that's kind of interesting. Wally's World just dropped a $2 donation. Thank you. What do you think Calistoga coming back in 2025? That's a good topic. That's a good question. Calistoga in 2025. I think it's going to happen. I really think it's going to happen, and I think High Limit's going to go there. I don't know that. That's me talking my own personal opinion. I don't have inside information. I think Calistoga is going to have a High Limit show. That's my prediction. I think it's that there's one open TBD in California. I think it's going to be at Stoga. In my opinion, that'd be huge. I really hope they bring back the Louis Vermeil. That would be cool. It's obviously like I probably wouldn't be there because I'd probably be racing, but just to have the Louis in California would be amazing. Again, non-wing cars there, man, are just incredible. I've never seen it, but I've watched all the videos. It looks amazing. So hopefully Calistoga's coming back. Obviously, they're not going to run a lot of races. It seems like if they do, they're just going to probably do special events, not like weekly racing, which is totally fine. I don't think they really need to do weekly racing there. Um, I think Stoga's cool for the history and stuff. Obviously, though, it is a very big racetrack. It's hard on equipment, hard on tires. So I feel like it's just a place we could stop at a couple times a year, and we'd probably be okay and move on to the next one. But with that, I should say it's really cool that they're bringing it back and just they're putting in that effort to preserve the history of that area and the track. I've been there one time, so like I said, it's unbelievable to take in, and it's definitely a place that we should have around. Like I said, I just don't think it needs to be a weekly racetrack. It could have a couple big events and survive and make money, and everyone's happy, and the people in the city are happy too. Freedom said, "Have you ever thought about doing a full blown show on national TV?" Well, so like obviously, that would be cool to do, but that's just I guess if someone came to us saying we're doing a TV deal, but you don't just necessarily obviously get a TV deal if you just want one. So if it came up, maybe if it seemed right. But as for now, we'll obviously keep pushing the content here. That's what's really cool about this platform is anybody can have a channel and you can try to follow along with different people, and that's what we've always tried to do. APX, he said, "Hey Tanner, what is your favorite race car on asphalt? Are you into karting?" So I'm not really into karting. I don't follow the karting world. I don't know who some of the good up and coming karting guys are on that side of things. And in asphalt in general, I just don't pay too much attention. Even up to the NASCAR stuff anymore. I just don't watch as much as I used to. Big moments I do like championship weekend and stuff. Like it was cool to see the three different champions that we had. Especially Justin Allgaier and stuff like that. But on the asphalt side of things, I just don't pay much attention, man. Like I said, unless it comes up on my Twitter feed from time to time, because I follow a couple things that show some of that. Like I said, I couldn't even tell you who the good late model drivers are, or street stocks, or hobby stocks, or I follow some of what Dale Jr. does with the Cars Tour, so I see that. But otherwise, man, like I said, I'm just out of the loop. So um, I don't know. Maybe I need to do a better job following that, but it's just tough. I feel like when you're in this world so much, um, even on the dirt side of things, like modifieds and late models, I barely see enough of that stuff. I mean, I see it, but it's just tough to follow along with. But when I do, I enjoy watching that stuff more because I think it's more entertaining. It seems like the asphalt stuff, when I see it's more a highlight reel of someone just getting dumped or spun in the fence and things like that, where, late models and modifieds actually do put on a really good show. So when I see a good highlight reel of that, I'm like, man, it makes me want to drive one. Z-Man, he said, "I grew up watching Chase Rodman's dad race on asphalt." That's actually really cool. Just to touch on that. So obviously Chase's dad was really good. We were good friends with Chase's dad's brother, Craig Rodman, which unfortunately Craig passed away several years ago or a couple years ago. But he was a good dude, man. He was a wheel man. He was really good in his day. All the stories. I never got to watch him, but there's a lot of good guys. It seemed like the asphalt deal was a lot more popular a couple years ago, and it was really cool. And like I think it was called the Southwest Tour, and back when you actually could make it to NASCAR off. I don't want to say just talent, but I'm saying back in those days where there was more opportunity, more sponsors, more racing, and even the asphalt scene was a lot better. Those days seemed really cool because not only was dirt really big, but asphalt was big, and there was just real opportunity to climb the ranks. Um, if things in a lot more, a lot, like I said, a lot more going on. So I really wish I could have lived those days. I wish I could have seen those days. I think those were the glory days of NASCAR, and I also think probably some of the glory days of even dirt racing too. I think dirt racing's in a much better spot now, even I think compared to like probably where NASCAR's at. But uh, I don't know. It's just interesting times between the two, and I just hear a lot of stories of how racing was in the '80s and '90s, and I think it was just a lot more what racing really should be. And unfortunately, the world changed, and so racing changed to now where it is. But that's just that's out of our control. But still, Speedwagon 79 says, "Is there a decent tow money for teams that commit to one of the two big series?" Yes, there actually is. So if you're full time, you get a pretty good tow package. I don't want to say exact numbers because I don't want to get anything wrong. But like for example, I know with the Outlaws, I think for many years it was $500 a night, um, roughly $500 a night. And then I know that they upped it. I think this last season close to $1,000, or at some point in the season, teams were getting $1,000 a night. Now sometimes on their 2 day shows, it's like 100% of that the first night, so it'll be like 1,000, and then the second night is 50% of that. Or if it's at like the same racetrack or something, if you go to a different track, I believe you still get the full amount. So there's some rules there. High limits tow package is a little different. Um, I don't, yeah, I don't remember what the tow package was exactly for them, but it was competitive, right, to that. So, you get good money to show up. That's for sure. So I mean, and it's that's all super helpful, and teams need that to survive. Without that tow money, it's really hard to go up and down the road. You obviously have your winnings, which if you're running good, you're doing good, but it's nice to have that guaranteed check for making sure you're on the, for on the series. Oh, I just wanted to clarify something. My mom had texted me. She must be watching. I think I said Chris Rodman was the one that passed away. Like I said, one of our family friends, and Craig's his brother. He's been, he actually, I don't know when his last race was, but he obviously just retired 2 years ago. Favorite racetrack in California? I would say probably Tulare, the Thunderbolt. Um, the Thunderbowl's a really cool racetrack. Trophy Cup, we just ran that. That place, when Tulare's right, it's really, really amazing. So I would say out of all places in California, that's probably one of the ones that I enjoy the most. A couple guys asking if I've been in non-wing. I've never ran anything non-wing. I've always wanted to try it. Just the opportunities haven't lined up for me to make it happen. Freedom, wrong question, guy here. May we ask, what is your made/loss for the season? Please don't answer if you don't want to. Of course, just curious. Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't have like all the exact stuff. I can tell you we're still spinning in a circle, so that's good for a race team. It's just so hard to gauge. There's just a lot of factors that go into it. And, obviously you have to see everything. Where do you bring in, with all your sponsors, with race winnings, and then, like I said, obviously all your expenses. But, we're still doing okay. We're still moving in a circle. Like I said, it is tough. We obviously would like to have better results. And when you have better results, you definitely can bring in some more cash. And, I think for all teams, you're always just looking at how can you do the most that you can with, your budget or whatever, because sometimes obviously speed and stuff costs more money, so you can try to make more on track, but you're also spending more in the shop. So like how can you just spend this but then also do this, and like I said, it's just very difficult. It's difficult to do. So dirt racing's a hard sport. It's an expensive sport. I don't, like I said, I don't have all the numbers right here in front of me as far as we lost this amount of money or we made this money, but like I said, we're still rolling good, and we're trying to keep growing, and that's just what it takes. It takes a lot of hard work. You just got to keep moving forward and through the good and the bad. Daniel Hall said, "Do you think dirt racing will continue to grow?" You know, I'm not really sure. I think so. I hope so. I hope the sport keeps growing, but it's really tough to say. At what point does dirt racing peak? Um, I feel like right now, like I talked about in one of my recent videos, dirt racing at the highest level is doing really well. And I feel like dirt racing at the lower levels is where it makes me more nervous. If there's a way we could get those lower levels healthier, then I would, I would feel a little bit better about the overall health of the sport. I think a lot of it is dirt racing just got to keep evolving with the times and in this social media era and having people involved and just getting more people excuse me, um, excited about the sport. And I think we just got to get more people involved at a young age and get them hooked because I think we're losing them. And there's a lot of distractions in life and there's a lot of other things that kids can be doing than be at a racetrack. And it's also tough because the grind of the sport, I think, doesn't match up to as much with this current generation that we have. And I'm in that generation, so I'm not like dogging on it. I'm just saying, right? Uh, so it's kind of just tough to say. I don't really know. Be interesting to see where dirt racing goes. Hopefully, as long as we also keep having more freedom, like where I live out here on the West Coast, they crack down. There's a lot more rules, and they're trying to shut down more racetracks. But I think if we can keep tracks open, keep people getting excited, and somehow get these new kids involved, then we got a shot. But the problem is, I feel like the generation of people that love the sports getting older, and this new one, these new guys, there's just the barrier to entry is higher too. It costs a lot more. People don't have that money, so there's just a lot of factors. You know what I mean? Seeing Austin Thomas, he said, "Man, that hat is looking fresh." That's those guys from Diamond Roofing Company. You can see they're a great partner of our race team, and we really appreciate their support. Hillbilly Hebrew, he said, "Sorry for the poorly worded. Do you have any plans to promote your channel and get to 100K subs?" I'd kind of tried for a while, and then you get busy creating content, and you kind of forget. But definitely hoping to get to 100,000 subscribers one day. We got some cool stuff planned when we get there. I'm sure we'll eventually hit it. You just got to keep grinding out, and obviously, hopefully, we can get there. Jeff said, anyone hitting you up to jump in their midget for some shows? I'm not going to be at any of the West Coast swing, but I'll have some Chili Bowl announcements soon. So that's some good news. Troublesome said, how would I be able to tow for someone in the Outlaws or high limit? So if you're talking about just drive the rig, there sometimes is positions on teams to drive the rigs. You would just have to reach out to them directly. And I think there is a couple paid positions. You obviously would have to have a CDL and be trustworthy and have some experience. But I definitely think that there's a position out there on some teams. There's some teams that you can't find anybody with CDLs nowadays. So they would gladly pay someone to drive the rig full time, I would think. Question, still have plans to move to the Midwest? Working on it. I told you, I said in a couple weeks, I'm going to have some more kind of announcements coming out on our 2025, and that will help connect the dots on where we're at with things. But man, I want to get out there more than ever. Z-Man said, would love to see you hoist that YouTube plaque. I know one day I'm going to get there. One day. Bobby said, what is causing back injuries? Is the rear end hitting the seat? I think it's a combination of things. I think it's that. I think sometimes also, too, it's just the right hit when you land and some perfect storm incidents. I think there's just so much that would have to be changed for the overall safety of sprint car racing with the current car we got. So I don't know. I'm not going to get too much into that. It's just such a topic. Like I said, there's just a lot I think that probably needs to be different. It's not one change that fixes it all. So with that, we've obviously been going here for a while. I really appreciate you guys all being here. I think we're going to wrap it up today. We'll end with this question here because I see that there was actually one really good question that kind of caught my eye. It was let's see, I just missed it. Dylan said, "Do you think streaming is killing track attendance?" That's a good one. I'm not really sure. So it's kind of a toss up. I think that streaming does have an effect. I think though it has a lot of positive too. So I think it's just how it works together. I think for like local racing and stuff, I think that there's certain races that probably don't need to be streamed. And also I haven't been in a position too where I'm at a track, so I haven't seen it from that perspective. I haven't seen it from that perspective and how they feel it directly affects them. I just see it from me as a driver and what I see online. I feel like though that not every race maybe needs to be streamed. And I think that as much as it sucks, I think maybe some of the local or the smaller races, they need to have a higher paywall than like a Flow Racing or Dirt Vision, a big company that can kind of charge a set price and stream all this stuff and just have a lot of subscribers. Because for a normal Saturday night show, stuff like that doesn't necessarily maybe work. They don't get enough money out of it and stuff like they have to charge a higher pay-per-view. So I just think that I think that with where everything's at, you just kind of got to be open as a fan to maybe spending a couple bucks if you have to buy a race and watch it from home just to end up supporting the track versus how the high streaming companies can only charge so much. That's it. Like I said, that's a very difficult one. I do think though it does correlate with attendance, but I also think that streaming has brought more people into the sport, which also has brought more people to the track. So I think it kind of just goes hand in hand there. It's really, really tough to say. Um, I think it's one of those things too that probably we'll have to just see how the next 10 years go and see where the sport ends up. And I think that that will directly correlate with, was it a good thing that we brought it in, or is it, was it more negative? And I think we just haven't seen it all play out. But I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Look at this. I'm out of water here. Appreciate you guys, man. It's awesome talking with you. I love doing this. I love my job. It's really cool. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some announcements coming out. You're going to know what 2025 looks like, and you might be more surprised than you think on where things are heading. So just love you all. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.